And so, if it sounds like I'm a little bit preachy about this subject, it's because I am. That's always the perfect example. Because that's for some reason, because people can afford a nicer car before they can afford a nice house. But you know what I prefer? I prefer the nicer house. I prefer the vacations. That's where I'm going to spend my money on, because that's far more important than the kind of car that I drive.
The first person contributed for 10 years and then stopped, but the money didn't stop growing. That original 10 years worth of contributions continued to compound for 20 more years. And there's an old saying, it's the first 100,000 that's the big one, right? The money starts seeming to go up in much larger increments once you get over that. Yeah, because of compounding interest. There's that much more money that is now working, right? So it becomes much more efficient. So
welcome back to another edition of the Retirement Planning Happy Hour. Thanks for joining us. This is Eric Douglas and Chris Vaughn, Family Wealth Planning Partners, headquartered here in beautiful Louisville, Kentucky, now that it's officially spring and our allergies are about as bad as they can possibly be.
Is it spring? It's already in the 80s.
I think
from winter to summer in a week.
It's still spring, though. I've been at this game long enough to know that we still got another cold front coming in.
Yeah,
for sure. At least one more cold front. I hope not, right? But I've been around plenty of times where we're still getting snow this far into April.
Absolutely.
So
Lord, we've had snow on Derby before, which is so disturbing when you think about it.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah. So
welcome to Kentucky.
Exactly. If you don't like the weather, wait an hour and you'll get something.
Totally
maybe better, maybe worse, right? So, but all that to say, back with another fun topic, I think, another interesting topic, and a fantastic bottle of bourbon. But let's talk about the topic first.
All right.
So we were going to address kind of money pits, right? So in our business, we obviously meet and talk to lots of folks, lots of clients, lots of folks that maybe don't become clients or can't become clients for whatever reason, right? And so we just, we hear a lot of money stories. And so some of the things that we find to be the biggest threats to the success or creating the success that everyone wants to achieve in life and retirement, which is kind of living on your own terms, financial freedom, not running out of money, whatever your kind of goals may be, those are all kind of intertwined to some degree, right? But we wanted to talk about what some of those threats are to achieving that financial freedom, that financial independence. And really, they start at a pretty young age, a lot of these things do. But we wanted to kind of go through them. A lot of these are correlated, obviously, but we wanted to go through these one by one, maybe share some stories that we've seen, talk about some ideas that we have to maybe address some of those concerns and how to how to get past them and start achieving the life of financial freedom that you want to live, right? So with that being said, that's the topic. I'll let you introduce our fantastic drink today.
Well, this is one. This may be a first. You and I have both had this. Not just this type, but we've had this exact barrel pick before. So the last couple that we recorded, we did the Antique 107, and we did that because we were comparing it to that fabulous Green River Foolproof Weeded. Yeah, but let's
my new top three, for sure.
But this one's the king. And I'm going to be real honest with you. I've gone to a million different bourbon events. I've tried some crazy stuff. I've tried stuff that is outrageously expensive. I would put Weller Foolproof, which is people call it the Blue Label.
Blue Label, yeah.
I would put a bottle of Foolproof up against almost anything. It's going to hold its own at any price.
It's probably the best of the Wellers. Now, the white label I've not had.
The CYOB, that one's different. The orange label is a single barrel. And then, of course, there's some specialty releases in the Wellers. But the Blue Label is more common. When I say more common, it leans towards unicorn. I think that's going to start changing. I have seen Blue Label for over $1,000. I can assure you I did not pay $1,000 for this. You'd have to drop a couple of digits off. I paid retail for this bottle. I have 3 of this particular barrel pick, and I paid $67 a bottle, which is retail on this. Yeah. And I can assure you, Eric's sweet spot is 40 to 50.
There's a lot of people listening to this that are throwing stuff.
They're very angry with me right now.
Where do you find this?
Yeah. And they're going, where do you live? Because I'm going to break in and steal the other 2 bottles, right? I know your sweet spot on price is that $40 to $50 price point, but I'm very confident.
Maybe a little bit older. Yeah,
you wouldn't hesitate to drop 67 on this. Right?
Oh, no, not on lower blue
the
label.
foolproof. So first of all, you need to understand the difference between a barrel strength or a cask strength and a foolproof. So remember that with a foolproof, what they're doing is whatever it comes out of the barrel. Remember that the proof goes up as things evaporate during the aging process. Then they water it down to get it back to its original proof when it went into the barrel. So that's an entry proof or a full proof. And that's what this is. It's 115, if memory serves. 114, I'm sorry. So 114 proof. The most bourbons go into the barrel at 125. You don't get as much yield when you go in lower than that, but you tend to get a better product. And that's one reason why Weller is so good. It goes in at a much lower proof than does the typical bourbon. The second thing on this one, we're very proud. I wish that I'd been involved in this. I'm not, but I'm going to claim it anyway. Kind of like you're cheering for your favorite team and you use the word we, even though I did nothing. This was the very first barrel pick that a club that I'm in that we've talked about many times called the Bourbon Snobs. This was the first official pick that we've done. Our logo's on the little gold sticker on the side. Where it came from is Sazerac, which is the company that owns Buffalo Trace, along with a lot of other stuff that's out there. Sazerac does a program called Barrel Select. So you put your name in. You have to create an account number. Then you get, they do it, I don't know how many times a year, but they draw a certain number of numbers for each one, right? Could be Weller, could be Buffalo Trace, could be Stag, whatever. They draw that number, and if your number comes up, and the longer you go without getting picked, the more times that your name goes into the pot, if you will. When your number goes in, if it gets picked, you have to buy a barrel. You get to pick it, but you have to buy the whole barrel. You'd be amazed how many people are willing to do that. And this particular pick was several months ago when they did a drawing, and the guy who's a friend of mine who was the founder of Bourbon Snobs, his name came up, and he got Weller Foolproof. Interestingly enough, another friend of mine, unrelated, he's a neighbor, he also got picked on the very same drawing, and he got the Sazerac Rye, which I tasted his pick the other night for the first time. I know you're not a fan. This was outstanding stuff. So
it's not that I'm not a fan.
It's not your favorite.
I'm not a big rye guy. I mean, some are okay. Some are better than others, but I'm just,
so good.
If you're going to give me a choice between like a wheated and a rye, I'm pretty much going to go wheated every time.
So anyway, Mark, the guy that actually won this, and another guy that is also affiliated with Bourbon Brotherhood, so they put their logo on it as well. We got two. And then Mark's wife actually went out and they did the barrel pick, and I've heard the story and I was super jealous, but everybody wanted to do it, so they couldn't say yes to everybody, so they kept it really small, and they came up with maybe the best barrel pick I've ever had of Blue Label, that's a statement, because I've had some of this stuff before and it is so good. And the reason I have 3 bottles is because he didn't have a 4th one available for me. I would have bought that too. So anyway, long story short, we're drinking the first official pick from the Bourbon Snobs of Weller Foolproof or Blue Label.
Fantastic juice. I think we're we don't need to really spend too much time hiding what our thoughts are going to be, right?
Front, I am going to put a drop in just to try it. I really don't want to, because I know how good this is. I feel fairly confident in saying that if our subject on Money Pits goes a little long, there's a good chance that there's going to be a second pour coming in. It is late in the afternoon on a Friday, so there's no guilt in that one.
So let's talk about some of the things that we see. Average, everyday consumers, even clients of ours that are, fairly well off, right? We still see some of these things that are occurring, maybe not to the same degree because they've done some of the things maybe earlier in life to kind of better prepare for retirement, right? But we all want to get to a point, especially in retirement, and we talk about this all the time, where we're able to do life. You're able to do the things that you want to do without really having to think too terribly much about it, right? You want to be able to go on the trip, go on the cruise, go spend the money on the grandkids, buy the presents, whatever, buy the car, okay?
Right.
Whatever you want to do to bring you joy. In order to do that, though, we talk a lot about that when we're doing retirement planning and how we want clients to get there. On the front end, that does require some work, and we probably don't spend enough time talking about that. And so that's kind of what we're talking about today is how do we avoid the pitfalls and the traps that you see in your younger years in order to get to the point in your retirement where you are able to live a financially free life, where you are able to do life without reservation, without having to worry about where every penny is going, right? So we'll just kind of go. We created a list kind of off the top of our heads. I know we both have some stories as it relates to some of these bullet points,
more
right?
Stories than we wish we knew.
Exactly, right? And some are personal, some are not, some are related to clients, some are related to friends, whatever the case may be. But we'll just start going through them, right, and giving our thoughts on maybe how to avoid some of these things. And you had a good story for the first one around kicking the can down the road.
Yeah.
And when we say kicking the can down the road, we are specifically referring to I got bills to pay today. I'll start saving later.
I got other things to do first.
Yeah. I have a 5-alarm fire in front of me. I have life in front of me. I got bills to pay. I can't afford to save. I'll do it tomorrow. Yeah. I'll start tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes and then maybe another day, right? Procrastination. And we're all procrastinating in certain parts of our life, I would imagine. But procrastinating in regards to retirement savings can really put you behind the eight ball.
Behind the eight ball, right.
And I'll give you a personal story of mine as well, but I'll let you lead off because you had a pretty good example around this.
I was going to say, I've got several true stories that relate to this that involve, the sequence that you should be doing things in. But the example that I use when I'm teaching a class or, I don't know about you. I've got a lot of clients have said, hey, would you mind talking to our adult kids and getting them on the right track? Of course. I'd be more than happy to. And the example that I use, and I do not know where I picked this up, so I can't give credit appropriately, but it's if you've got two people and they're going to contribute the same amount of money to an investment account of some kind, month in and month out, and the investments are identical, so their rate of return is identical. All right, so that way we've got a level playing field, if you will. But the first person starts making the contributions every single month today, right? And they continue making those every single month without fail for 10 years, right? Now, the second person doesn't start until the end of the 10 years. They kick the can down the road, for example. They start at the end of 10 years. So in year 11, they start making the same exact contributions every month. Same investment as far as rate of return goes. And the first person stops. So the second person now continues contributing every single month until the end of year 30. So person 1 contributed for 10 years. Person 2 contributed for 20 years, but there was a 10-year delay before they got started. Person number 1 has more money at the end of 30 years. And I don't remember the math off the top of my head, but it's a substantial difference between the two. And you say, how is that possible? The second person contributed twice as much. And that's time value of money is that concept where it comes in. That's, interest. That's just how compounding interest thinking. That's how it works because the second person did contribute twice as much, but they waited 10 years before they started. The first person contributed for 10 years and then stopped, but the money didn't stop growing. That original 10 years worth of contributions continued to compound for 20 more years. And there's an old saying, it's the first 100,000 that's the big one, right? The money starts seeming to go up in much larger increments once you get over that. Yeah, because of compounding interest. There's that much more money that is now working, right? So it becomes much more efficient. So it's a generic story, but it's a great one to learn. Waiting can be a huge deal. You'd be better off. Let's really get into it now. And then if you need to, you can delay later. And I've used this one with quite a few clients, adult children, who do not have children of their own. They know they want to, but they don't yet. And they say, well, I want to save up for kids. No, you need to be contributing hard and heavy now so that if you do need to slow that down or stop, when you do have kids, right, because we all know how expensive children are, that money that you started before you had kids, it's still working. It's still compounding.
It's significantly easier when you're young to live like a pauper.
Yes, it is.
And I had friends, and this is my personal example, right? So I was talking about myself. I had, my oldest daughter. She was born a month before I graduated college, which ironically, she's graduating next month from college. So she's exactly where I was.
You feel old right now.
It is kind of surreal, looking at my daughter who, was born in college, and she's exactly where I was when she was born right now. So, but that's another story. So she was born a month before I graduated college. So I came out of college basically paying child support. Right. I mean, right out of the gate with my first job. I had buddies that were living together, 3-4 people to a house.
Oh yeah.
Able to really, really save money on rent because they were sharing expenses. I mean, just living in, a mattress on the floor. And you know what? I could have easily done that at that age. I wasn't able to do that because, I had a daughter and I wasn't going to be roommates with someone because I needed a room for my daughter, right? So I went out and I was probably one of the first of my friends to go out and I bought a condo, which that's probably another mistake at that time because this was like pre-08, right? Right before everything crashed in 08.
Whoops.
So the timing on that wasn't necessarily fantastic, but regardless, I went out and I wanted to make sure I had a nice place to raise my daughter in. Right. And so that kind of put me behind the 8 ball a little bit because I had friends that were maxing out their Roths for years before I ever opened one myself.
Yeah.
And so I for years, it felt like it was really tough for me to catch up to some of my buddies because I just, and obviously it was, decisions that I made, right? And I'm the one that had the daughter. But to your point, kids are expensive.
Yeah.
Kids are really expensive. And so I had buddies that were living like paupers, but today are living very, very well because they were able to start their savings journey earlier than I was. Right. Yep. And it's not like they came out making a ton of money right out of college, but they were able to live a lifestyle that allowed them to be able to do things like maxing out their Roth IRAs and setting up an emergency fund and some of the things that I had a lot of trouble doing. And so anything that you can do to avoid kicking the can down the road, anything that you can do to start saving now. If you haven't started saving yet, the best time to do it is today.
Right.
Right? If you feel like you're late, start today. You have to start somewhere, and starting is the hardest.
Oh, it's no different than starting a new habit, like starting an exercise routine. If you haven't been exercising, it's the first few weeks that are the toughest, right? And after that, it becomes easier because the habits develop.
And this is something that I really hate about our industry because so much about our industry, when you turn on the financial, news stations, right, and you read about the stock market, everything's about return. What was the return? I'm sorry, but if you have $1,000 saved up, a 20% return isn't going to help you.
No, not really.
Right? It's not that big of a deal. Sounds great. It's not that big of a deal.
You got to keep contributing to it.
To your point that you made, really, it isn't until you start getting to about 100,000 and up where you really start to see, oh, my money is actually starting to make some real money now. Okay, a 20% return on $1,000 versus a 20% return on $100,000 is dramatically different.
Right.
A 20% return on $1 million portfolio. Okay, now we're starting to talk.
A much bigger number.
Yeah,
right?
We're talking about some real dollars. So your savings rate is significantly more important than your rate of return in the beginning. And that's why you cannot be worried about your savings rate. Don't worry so much about what you're invested in. Don't try to be fancy. Don't try to overthink it. Think about how much you can save, how much you can invest to do something with to get the ball rolling.
Yep.
And really anything that you can do to avoid kicking that can down the road is for as long as you possibly can. I mean, just start as early as you possibly can and make a conscious decision to live like a pauper if you need to.
Yep, absolutely. So actually, as you're saying that, another story that I've used with young people that kind of leans into the same thing is, and I know you've heard this before, I extrapolate out on it in order to teach a lesson. So the argument is you're given a choice. You got one of two options. You can have $5 million in cash, or you can have 1 penny that compounds at 100% per day for 1 month. Now, when you hear that story, you know it's a trick question, and you still will fall for the trap.
Yeah,
you'll still go, well, I'd rather have the $5 million. Well, not me. I want the penny. And I've done this one when I'm talking to young people, before. Okay, so let's talk about that. So day one, you've got 1 penny. Day two, it doubles. You've got 2 pennies. Woohoo, right? Day three, you've got 4 cents. Day 5, you've got 8 cents. I mean, you're halfway through the month before you're into double-digit dollars, right? But eventually, those numbers start getting big, okay? And when they start getting big, they start getting big fast. On day 30, you surpass the $5 million mark, right? Even though I think you're at like $20,000 on day 21 or 22 or something like that. And on day 31, if I'm remembering the math correctly, you'll have $10,700,000 something dollars. Obviously, that's better than $5 million. Okay, so you get the concept. That's the whole story of compounding interest. 100% per day is not realistic, blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
But here's the real point of the story. You don't get to the $10,700,000 number on day 31 unless you had day 1 where you only had 1 penny.
Yeah.
And day 2 where you only had 2 cents. You got to have those 2 days in order to get to those bigger numbers down the road and to win. So the point that I would make would be, back to what you were saying, is you've got to contribute early and not be worried about rate of return. It's all about getting the savings done and getting that money working for you, because now it's going to continue working for you even when you're taking a day off because you're having kids, or you know what, maybe it was a really tough month, or maybe you've lost your job and you need to not be saving for a few months because the income has stopped. But the savings that you'd already done is still working, and that's the point. That's why kicking the can down the road is such a money pit.
Well, they also think too that they're going to find the next Bitcoin or the next GameStop.
No, you're not.
Or the next, whatever.
Somebody will, but
whatever the new hot meme stock is going to be at any given time, and they think that they're going to hit it. They can just pick whatever stock it's going to be later, and they're going to hit it big, and they can avoid kind of the trials and the tribulations of the hard work that it really takes to get to where you need to be.
There will be people out here who will hit that next big one.
Oh yeah, there will.
But there will also be people who will win the lottery. You know what I mean? And statistically, the chance of you picking the right one and doing it at the right time, that's not how you do this.
I knew a guy years and years ago that had gotten in on Bitcoin pretty early, sold all of his Bitcoin and bought a Maserati. This was back in mid 2010s. Probably, let's say 2015, something like that. I don't know. It's been probably 10 years, 10 or 11 years. If he hadn't bought that Maserati,
he could buy Rhode Island now.
Oh, he'd be buying a lot more than a Maserati.
Right. Yeah, it would be worth so much more.
But that's the thing. Everyone thinks about, if I'd gotten into Bitcoin really early, I'd have all this money. You wouldn't have stayed in all the volatility along the way. You wouldn't have stayed in. You would have sold at some point, right? Very, very few people have the wherewithal to stick with that type of an investment philosophy and not take some money off of the top at some point. But anyway, that's another podcast episode. Keeping up with the Joneses, okay? Ugh. And it's interesting because I'm really going. This is definitely going to be focused more on the younger folks.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I don't see this with retirees very often. I really don't. It's interesting.
I can think of some exceptions, but they are exceptions, not the rule.
But for the most part, retirees, you come into retirement, you have your lifestyle, and you just want to continue your lifestyle. You're not really worried about trying to achieve some other level of wealth. Because you kind of you figure things out as you get a little bit older. Amazingly enough, some of the young people that might be listening, some older folks do have some level of wisdom, right? And you get to a certain point where you realize, trying to keep up with the Joneses is probably a stupid proposition, and you're never going to win that game because there's always a Jones at a higher level than you. You get to the next level, then you find somebody else that's at a higher level. So you never win that game, right?
Well, and I think this one has become infinitely worse than what it once was. We used to keep up with the Joneses, and we were referring, where the phrase comes from. The Joneses were a couple that lived down the street who had a nicer house, and they had nicer cars, and they had prettier landscaping and all that. I think that kind of changed a little bit when social media came along.
Very much so.
Now we're advertising our lifestyle to everybody.
Or a perceived lifestyle.
Exactly. That's where I was going with this, is what you are seeing out there and the reality is probably not the same. I can tell you that most of the people that I know personally that I see on Facebook, Instagram, I don't do TikTok, but you know what I'm saying. The ones who don't post are the ones who are financially actually the ones that you would want to be like this, right? It's just kind of a rule of thumb. But I had a great one, and I've told this story to you before. I knew a couple So we were friends on Facebook. Now, we were not close, but I knew them. The stuff that they posted on Facebook, the vacations they were going on, they were hitting the beach, and it was always something cool, right? And it was like, man, I am so jealous. And that's where it comes from, obviously. But I got a phone call one time, and they were saying, hey, we are interested in we need somebody to put us on the right path financially. Mm-hmm. What do you mean? You guys are living it up. No, they were doing all of that on credit cards and home equity loans, and they were up to their eyeballs. They couldn't breathe because of the debt. And I'm sitting here thinking, you know what? There were a lot of years where I wanted to live like that, and I couldn't. Mm-hmm. And I chose not to, for any number of reasons, but I would like to think that wisdom was part of it. But it eventually allowed us to get to the point where when my wife and I go on vacation, we don't put it on a credit card other than to get the points. The credit card gets paid off before the end of the month every time. Mm-hmm. We're paying cash for these things. But we also don't post a lot of it. I'm not trying to get your attention. I'm actually trying to enjoy it. Social media has taken the keeping up with the Joneses concept, and it's put it to such a high level that I'm worried that the millennial generation are really going to suffer 20 years from now because they were trying to have all those cool things and all those likes and clicks when they were earlier in life, and they haven't saved up properly.
Well, I'd be worried if their parents weren't boomers and they were the richest generation.
Yes, so. and yes, okay, keeping up with mom and dad.
But
right?
Actually,
let's be real honest.
Yeah,
keeping up with mom and dad. I was reading a great article about that just this morning, and it had to do with millennials and Gen Z are not having children as fast, and the population's hurting. Why? And the argument that they were making was because their parents, who are typically baby boomers when they're talking about millennials, their parents are too involved in stuff to be the babysitter that they were counting on. It was a really interesting article, but it did go into the fact that boomers are the wealthiest generation out there by a long shot. Boomers are 60-something% of the wealth, it said, but they're 20% of the population. It's like, wow, that's a pretty amazing number.
But a part of that is people are living longer. And
they're living longer.
They're healthier.
This particular generation was taught to save, and they did hit the lottery when it comes to the timing of the market
returns.
They really were positioned time-wise.
For sure.
It's such a great spot. So you know what they're doing?
Yeah.
They're out enjoying it. Good for them. That's what we preach.
Yeah.
But now you've got their children or the younger generation going, I want to live like that. Right? And they start trying to do it now instead of saving up so that they can do it later and not do it with debt.
Yeah. It's interesting. I just got back when we talked about this. I just got back from my first cruise.
I was going to bring this up on the podcast today.
I just got back from my first cruise.
He's a convert, folks. We've converted him.
I'm in my mid-40s, the first one I've ever been on. It was a blast. It was a lot of fun. But we took the kids, and the kids had some friends there. But the whole time I'm sitting there reminding my kids, I can't believe you're on a cruise at this age. Like,
I've said that to my kids.
Do you have any idea how lucky you are that you have parents that are able to help do that? Like, this is my first cruise. Like, you're experiencing your first cruise at the same time as your dad and your mom. Actually, it was my wife's first one too. And so we do a lot of reminding about how lucky they are. But it's interesting. Just. It doesn't even have to be very big either. Everyone thinks about like the vacations and stuff from a smaller standpoint. Now, once again, I'm going to use myself as an example. My first job out of college, I worked with a lot of young guys in their 20s. And what did we all do? It was actually a lot of fun to do, but we went out to eat to lunch every day as a group.
Yeah.
And so we were doing like Chinese buffets, and we were doing Texas Roadhouse and Lone Star, and there was Ernesto's, and Ernesto's you had like the best chips and cake. It was fantastic, right? But we would go out to eat all the time. Mm-hmm. And when you're first starting out in your career and you're not making money, that's about the biggest waste of money that you can have.
Absolutely.
Going to eat out every day. I mean, eating out, even today, I don't eat out nearly as much. That's just one of those luxuries that I really don't participate in because,
do anything for you.
One, it's not very healthy, and two, it's just a total waste. Of course, the cost of going out to eat has gotten so expensive.
Sure.
So it's just not something that I really value. I'll just go eat at home and eat way healthier anyway.
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, it wasn't the fact that I was spending money that made me stop. It was the fact that I put on like 20 pounds.
Yep.
And I was an old college athlete, and I was used to looking and feeling a certain way. And I finally put myself on a scale one day. I was like, I'm not supposed to look and feel like this.
Right.
And I attributed it to going out to eat for lunch every day, basically. And I wasn't working out the way that I was in college and all that.
Right.
And so it was me actually feeling bad physically that got me in a better financial state, because I stopped going out to eat every day. And I started bringing my own lunch, or I started eating like salads and just being far more
cost conscious
and health conscious. But I just wasn't going out to spend money every day at lunch. And this was, lunch prices 20 plus years ago.
Oh gosh.
You go to Qdoba and Chipotle
Go
today.
to McDonald's right now. You're going to
yeah.
drop $14 on yourself at McDonald's.
This is back when they still had dollar menus, right? None of those places have dollar menus anymore, right? So it's small things like that, but those things add up, right? Going to bars on the weekends with your buddies and going to buy drinks, instead of buying the Jim Beam, you're trying to buy the Weller, right? Stuff like that. Because you're listening to podcasts like ours, and you're, hearing us ramble on about how good Weller Blue Label is, right? And so it's doing those things that, once again, going back to the idea of just living like a pauper when you're young is significantly easier to do. Just, stop trying to keep up with what everyone else is doing, because if everyone did that, you'd be amazed at how many people really probably shouldn't be doing that in the first place anyway. So that's definitely one thing. Emergency funds.
Ooh.
Emergencies.
This one's personal.
So, and we see this we see it with clients sometimes, that they're not properly prepared with a real emergency plan or emergency fund, because inevitably life does happen. We talk about in retirement going out and doing life, but inevitably life happens to you too.
And not in a good way.
Not always in a good way. Right. Most of the time, not always in a good way, right? So you need to be prepared for that, and we see this a lot because everyone's focused on, well, I need to save. I need to max out my Roth, and I need to prioritize that they do that at the expense of creating a proper emergency plan or emergency fund. So what you said you had
I got a very personal story on this one. We were talking about the mistakes that we made when we were younger, how much better off we would be had we not made some of those mistakes. It's easy to Monday morning quarterback your own life, right? So in my particular case, we have a family joke that you're familiar with because we've talked about it, called Vaughn's Law, right? So it's based on Murphy's Law. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong at the worst possible time. And our family jokes, we call it Vaughn's Law, which is anything that can go wrong will explode in your face with a lot of people watching. Now, obviously, we're being facetious. We say it in jest, but where it comes from is there has been a tremendous amount of just statistically bad luck, right? Most of it happened to me when I was younger. And it was... unfortunately, I beat the odds, and not in a good way. There was always something that was a money suck on us. And I was, very early in my marriage, I was given very bad advice. Pay off the debt immediately, and pay off the highest interest debt first. Well, that's incorrect, right? It's actually pay off the smallest debt first so that you can snowball. But anyway, what I was not told to do was to have an emergency fund, right? So the problem comes, you say, okay, so I've had this bad thing happen that I have to pay for this. I have to buy this item, whatever the case might be. And it is a genuine need, not a perceived need. Well, the problem is you buy that and you have no money available, and then something bad happens that you have to spend money. I don't have any cash, so what do? You put it on a credit card. Because I made the same mistake that so many other people have made. I got my first credit card when I was a freshman in college.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because
giving them
they
out
had
of the ball
the
game
table
or something.
set up, and I'm going, man, they're just giving money away. So I got exactly what everybody else did. I got a credit card, and I thumped my chest and said, I have arrived. Yeah, and then you got to pay the bill. I made it very clear to my kids, when you leave for college, my youngest, you're talking about your oldest getting ready to graduate from college. My youngest graduates from high school next month. So I'm kind of in that phase now where, get ready, guys, life's about to happen. I made it very clear to them, if they apply for a credit card while they are in college, I will break their legs. Right now, they know I'm being facetious, but it gets their attention because I know what happens. So you get that credit card and you have the event happen, and you put $500 or $1,000 on a credit card without the ability to pay it off immediately, right? And you say, okay, all right, I'm okay, but now you got a payment, and that payment's $20, which of course is not even keeping up with the interest, right? And then something else bad happens, which is what happened to me at that point in life. It was just a chain of events that were just bad luck, right? Yeah. And all of a sudden you catch yourself in debt. I eventually got out of it because I got advice from a different source that said, hey, build up $1,000 emergency fund before you do anything else. You should do everything short of starving to death to get that emergency fund built up. And I did that, and it was amazing how quickly life turned around. Because the bad events continued to happen. That's life. It happens to you. But I had the cash to pay for the item. And then I immediately built my cash back up. Right, so the bad thing happens. I've got $1,000 in my savings, and I have to spend $500 because I ran through a whole bunch of nails on the road, and I got 4 flat tires. I got to get to work. All right, now I'm going to kill myself to get the $500 built back up, but I'm not paying interest on that money, right? And then you get rid of the credit card debt and all those kind of things. It was the emergency fund that was the catalyst to me getting out of that I can't breathe part of my young life. You know what I mean? So the emergency fund cannot be overstated how important it is that you have a sufficient emergency fund, especially when you're young.
Yep. And I don't want to, because you talked about debt. Not all debt is bad.
No.
Okay?
Not
all debt is bad. You buy a home, but you buy a home. That's a lifestyle decision, right? That's not necessarily bad debt. Business loans. We
absolutely been there, done that.
We've both taken out business loans. I still have 2, actually, technically. Only one of them I'm definitely not paying off anytime soon because the rate's so ridiculously low. But,
right.
But anyway, it was for the purpose of starting a business for both myself and my wife. And so now that those were lifestyle decisions that brought us joy, and yes, financially it was,
but in the case of a business loan, you're taking out a loan to do something that creates new wealth.
Exactly.
Personal loans, that's a little
different. And I want to, because that's why I want to be sure about, classifying when we talk about debt. You're talking about credit card debt for the purpose of keeping up with the Joneses.
Bingo.
For the purpose of kicking the can down the road, short-term fulfillment.
Having the nicer house, not credit card debt, but having the nicer house because, well, my friend Sally has a nicer house. Yeah. I like hers. I want what Sally's got. That's another keeping up with the Joneses problem.
Yeah. Well, your friend Sally has a better job than you do,
right?
Your friend Sally has more money than I do. Your friend Sally has more, richer parents, right? So not and this is, inevitably this is very true also, right? Life ain't fair.
No, it's not.
Life's not fair.
No, it's not.
I came from a lot of not much. I'm not saying I came from nothing, but I came from not much. And, I was behind, like I said, and then I had, my daughter in college, and, I was behind the 8 ball for a long time with a lot of my friends. And I watched a lot of my friends be able to do things like go on bachelor parties in other cities that I had to stay back. I could not participate because I didn't have the money. There was no way I could have gone. Didn't have the money. I had to make sacrifices, and I had to live a certain way to ensure that I could live a certain way today and tomorrow, right? And so it's just reality. Not everyone's going to be in the same boat. Some people are going to enter into fields that don't pay as much money. If you're a teacher, God bless you. You're doing something with God.
I'm so glad there's so many people willing to do it because it ain't my thing.
You're doing the Lord's work. Yeah. Good for you. And I wish you all got paid more, but you don't go into teaching knowing you're going to make a lot of money. Yeah, it's just the reality of it, right? So, and this kind of leads into living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
How do we avoid living paycheck to paycheck? And a lot of this has to do with that lifestyle creep because I'm going to combine the last 2 things here because whenever people get a raise, the first thing they want to do is go celebrate, go spend some money, go enjoy it. Oh, I'm making an extra $1,000 a month now. what can I do with that 1,000? Now I can go do this, and I can go do that, and I can go buy the nicer bourbon, and I can, you should be paying. That's a perfect opportunity for you to continue your current lifestyle and pay yourself first. Mm-hmm. Take that opportunity to start investing in yourself and investing in your future. I've said this, when my daughter turned 18. I made her, we opened a Roth when she turned 18. That was one of her 18th birthday presents. I gave her some money to kind of help her do it, sure. Right? But I was like, okay, how much do you have in your checking account? We're going to open a Roth IRA for you. Yep. And you're not going to be happy with me today, but when you're 40 years old, you're going to love me.
You're going to think back and go, oh, Mom and Dad, thank you
much. You're going to love me a lot more when you're older. But today you're not going to, because I'm going to take a lot of money out of your checking account, and we're going to open a Roth IRA for you. Because you're working, you have income, and we can do that, right? Mm-hmm. And so, and she knew it, and she appreciated it, and she, we've had the
intellectually she knew it, even though it might not have felt as good at the time.
Yeah. And you know what? And that money has grown in the last. She just turned 22. She was 18. It's been 4 years. Hey, guess what's happened in the market the last 4 years? So she's probably maybe a little bit thankful for me now, hopefully.
Right.
For that reason, anyway. Maybe not for other reasons, but yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to live below your means.
That's the key
we talk
phrase
about
right there.
Living below your means, and we talk about lifestyle creep, and we talk about keeping up with the Joneses, and we talk about kicking the can down the road and avoiding things, today for, giving up long-term fulfillment for short-term adrenaline, right? I keep going back to it because it really is the easiest example, right? Starbucks.
Oh.
Lunch, right? Going out to eat for lunch. Going out to get coffee, paying for
coffee.
Stop
calling it Starbucks and start calling it $6, which is how much a cup of coffee costs there, right? If you start thinking about it that way, maybe it'll get through your head. You don't need this.
And I say this not in jest, because I always laugh at some of the financial gurus. Well, if you didn't go to Starbucks every day, and that would save you $5 a day, and at the end of the day, you can invest that $5, and it'd be okay. That's crap. That's not going to make you rich. That's not what I'm talking about. What I am talking about, though, is you have to start somewhere. Mm-hmm. You have to start with the small stuff. And at some point, you probably need to give up the Starbucks and drink coffee at home. At some point, you probably need to stop going out to eat every day and bring your lunch to work. Yeah. You have to start somewhere. And that, to me, that's what that represents. I'm not going to be here, and I'm not going to be Mr. Killjoy and say that you could never have Starbucks again, because it's a total waste of money, and you could invest that money and get compounding interest. Mm-hmm. That's crap. That's not what I'm saying.
You can't have Starbucks every day.
You just right? But I use that as an example to say you have to start somewhere. Yep. And so many times it's really easy for people to say, well, I have to have a car. I have to make a car payment. Okay, I'll grant you that. Now, maybe we can talk about the kind of car that you're driving. That's another discussion. But, okay, if you've already got the car, you've already got the car payment. You have to cut somewhere else. You have to be able to start somewhere. And if you can't give up the Starbucks, then you can't give up the bigger stuff, right? And so you have to almost train yourself to understand, I can give up going out to eat every day. I can bring my own lunch. I can bring, the lean cuisines or whatever. I used to do that. I did that, right? But you can bring the lean cuisines to work and use the work microwave. And, you can eat lunch for a few bucks a day as opposed to going out and spending $15, $20 per day. You have to start small and train yourself to think there are certain things that I can live without. My lifestyle is really ultimately not going to be affected negatively by them. What else can I potentially give up in the name of potentially not kicking the can down the road and being able to start doing the things today to ensure a much more rewarding and fulfilling future and retirement and financial independence at a much younger age, as opposed to continuing to kick a can.
Something you said there kind of triggered a thought in my head. Something that I think people, and I would love to say that this is only young people. That's not true. This is people across the board. We need to change the language that we use inside of our own heads. You were making the example of, I have to have a car and I have to have a car payment. And you were making that example, and I went, no, that's not the things that people need to be saying. I have to get to work. I have to have reliable transportation. Yeah. You don't have to have a car, right? You have to be able to get to where you're going, to school, to work, whatever the case
or
might
maybe
be.
you don't have to have a brand new Ford F-150.
And that was my next thing was you don't have to have a car payment. So I'm going to give you a lot of credit here because I am a car guy. We were talking about it earlier today. I dropped my car off just to have some work done on it this morning, and the place that I take my car to has started dealing with exotics. Now, my car is not an exotic, right? But sitting next to where I dropped my car off were, and I'm not making this one up, 2 Ferraris and a sexy Lamborghini, right? I started listing the letters that came after the Lamborghini's model name, and you said, you had me at Lamborghini. Nothing makes sense after that.
Nothing matters after
and
Lamborghini.
I'm sitting here going, my car is sitting next to a Lamborghini Aventador SV J Series. My car looks like a total piece of crap next to that car. But I tell you that in order to get back to this story. You have said many times, the car doesn't matter to me.
Doesn't at all.
Right? You have a white Camry.
10 years old.
Got some, it's 10 years. Okay, I was thinking it was 10 years old. Got a couple of scratches and bangs on it from whatever.
Not a
right?
couple. It's got
but
more
you
than
know what
a
it
couple.
does? It gets you to and from work. I'd be willing to bet a lot of money. You don't owe any money on that car.
Oh, no.
You have to pay insurance and gas and occasional maintenance on it, right?
I pay a lot less insurance on it than I would if I got a new
Absolutely.
car. Yep.
Right? So, and therein lies the point. You have to get to work. You don't have to have a car. But if you do have to have a car, okay, I live out in the sticks because I like living out in the sticks. You can't take a bus. You definitely can't walk or ride a bike to get from where I live to our office, for example. I have to have a car. It is the only option. But I do not have to have a car payment, right? I'm a Mercedes fan. I would love to have one of these big, fat, nasty AMGs that sounds awesome because I am a car guy. I don't have that, right? I've got a 9-year-old Mercedes that I baby on it a little bit, and it gets me where I go. But I don't owe money on it, and that's kind of the point you were talking about, that we need to get the language out of our heads. I have to have this. No, you have to accomplish something. Now you need to be creative inside of that. How am I going to accomplish that? I think that's where so many young people especially get themselves in trouble. I have to get to work. Therefore, I have to have a car. Therefore, I have to have a car payment. Well, if I'm going to have a car payment, if I get that, I can lease it and have a smaller car payment. That means I can get a better car. And you just see how this is a really, really dangerous, slippery slope.
My favorite is when I hear it, well, I need a reliable car, so I have to have a newer one.
Yeah.
No, you don't.
Okay. How old is your car?
10 years old. And trust me.
How old is my car?
I will
Very reliable. You're right.
My car is going to last another 100,000 miles.
Exactly.
It's fine.
Yeah. Well taken care of. This is not a specific to German cars or Japanese cars. Any car that is made in today's world, if you take proper care of it, you can get a couple 100,000 miles of it. Not that difficult, right? Do the oil changes, do the balances on the tires. The things that are actually not that expensive are going to add up. Now, if you save that kind of money, what can you do with it? Going back to your point, get that I have to have language out of your head, because it is absolutely devastating to your future.
Well, show me where you spend money, and I'll show you what's important to you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if you spend money on this big, important car, you're telling me that your car is more important than your financial future.
Right.
It is. And you can tell me all day that it's not, but I see where you're spending your money. And if you're spending your money on some fancy car that you can barely afford, that's what's important to you.
Right.
It's not retiring early, right? It's not saving for an emergency fund. It's not going on cool trips and living a more carefree lifestyle, or having financial freedom. That's not what's important to you. What's important to you is keeping up with the Joneses and driving a cool fancy car that, quite frankly, no one cares about.
It still gets you from point A to point B, right? That's its
well,
job.
And I say this story because I talk about this story with clients all the time, and I use myself as the perfect example, right? Because I've made the mistakes and I've done the things, but some things I've done pretty well, actually. In college, I got into a wreck. It was the last day of my junior year of college.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was 21. I'd already turned 21. I played baseball. The baseball season was just ending. It was like the last. It was the last weekend series, baseball series of the weekend or of the year. I hadn't been working because it was the baseball season. So I had just nothing. I had nothing, right? And I was getting ready to start a new internship downtown. And I needed to get downtown every single day for this new internship that I was starting. But it was the last day of school on the last weekend of the last, series for baseball that I had that year. Got into a wreck, totaled my car. Wasn't my fault. Someone came out right in front of me. I T-boned them. It was totally their fault. I was not at fault at all. Long story short, my car got totaled out. I could not afford it. I had nothing. Right. I had no money, could not afford a new car. And I was starting an internship like the next week downtown. Ugh. Couldn't afford a new car. I had to TARC downtown. Okay, so when I say TARC, if anyone's not in Louisville listening, that's the bus system.
It's the local bus system.
So I was taking the bus downtown every morning at 7 a.m., okay, and hopping on the bus every day after, my shift ended at 4:30. I was like 8 to 4:30, I think, and I had like a half-hour lunch or something. But I was hopping on 4:30, 5 o'clock every day, riding, the bus home. Right. Once again, a 21-year-old kid taking the bus by myself every single day to my internship downtown. And then, of course, I'm getting home at night. And what do most 21-year-old kids want to do? Have a social life,
right?
Take girls out, go to the bars, right? Hmm? My entire summer was spent, hey, can you come pick me up? Hey, Dad, can I borrow your car? Right? So you go through that for a few months. And what happened finally was one of the guys at my internship that I was working with had a cheap, just a beater car that he was getting rid of because he had gotten a new one. So found out that you got a hold of that car. I ended up buying that car from him. The thing was not in great shape, but you know what it did? It got me from A to B. And you go for a few months without the ability, when you're 21 years old and the most important thing to you is your social life, and you can't actively participate in your social life because you don't have a car to get you there reliably, and you're relying on other people for your social life to occur, right? You realize that I don't care how I get there. I just want to get there.
I want to get there, right.
So if I can get from A to B with a radio, and this had the windows that crank, so I had the crank windows,
A real car.
I did not have air conditioning, but I had a radio.
You did have air conditioning. That was what that crank was.
Yeah, well, not in the summer, it wasn't. But I could get from A to B. I could participate in life again. I could get to where I wanted to go. I could get to the bars. I could get to the parties. I could, take a girl out to dinner if I wanted to, right? I got my life back. When you go a few months without that, you truly understand that the way that you get there doesn't matter. Getting there is what matters, okay? And so that's always been my philosophy around cars. And I know people probably think that I'm like preaching down to them when I talk about this, but cars are they're so easy to use as an example of living beyond your means and trying to keep up with the Joneses, because cars are so unimportant. They are so unimportant. All the bells and whistles on cars now is ridiculous. I mean, you get air conditioning, you get Bluetooth, you get from A to B pretty safe. That's all you really need. We live in the city, right? And, hey, I love Ford truck plants, local, right? Mm-hmm. How many people are driving Ford trucks?
Oh my gosh!
That live in the suburbs,
right?
You do not need a pickup truck. You
definitely don't need a $70,000 pickup truck, which is what most of them are now.
It's a total waste of money, and they're gas hogs, right? Oh. And so, if it sounds like I'm a little bit preachy about this subject, it's because I am. That's always the perfect example. Because that's for some reason, because people can afford a nicer car before they can afford a nice house. Mm-hmm. But you know what I prefer? I prefer the nicer house. I prefer the vacations. That's where I'm going to spend my money on, because that's far more important than the kind of car that I drive.
You said something very key there, and then I'm going to stop beating on this dead horse. You said you don't need a nice car.
Yeah.
No, you want a nice car. You need reliable transportation. And I think that's where these, kind of summing things up, this money pit, this keeping up with the Joneses and all that stuff. You need to be very honest with yourself. What do you need and what do you want? You know what I want? I am a Mercedes fan. We've had that discussion before. I like having a car that when I step on the gas, all of a sudden I'm in front of everybody in a big hurry. I like that. That's what I want. It's not what I need. Right. And I learned that many years ago, that buying new cars and leasing new cars, it's a horrible money pit because it's a depreciating asset.
Depreciating. That's one of the greatest.
The only cars that are not depreciating assets are exceedingly rare collector's item type cars. And you're not out there buying that stuff. Buying new cars. I will never buy another new car unless, of course, I win, a couple $1 billion in the Powerball. And I still won't go out and buy one of these $1 million cars. I want to have a nice car. I want it to have certain features. I want this color, blah, blah, blah. You need reliable transportation. You need to be able to get where you're going. So when you're 21, you can go out on a date or go out and have a drink with some of your buddies. You need to be able to get to work, right? This, and I'll, another part in this kind of wrap up on the emergency fund. One of the things that I've seen with young people a lot, they build up the emergency fund. They've got $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 in the emergency fund, and they see something. I need that. No, you don't. You want that. And I don't blame you. It's cool, right? Mm-hmm. I love gadgets and widgets just as much as anybody. I want it too, but I don't need it. And you don't ever spend your emergency fund on something that is not essential for the continuance of life. Right? That's kind of the point. That's what got me in trouble when I first started learning about the emergency fund had to come first. I had to get real honest on what I needed and what I wanted. And once I did, man, life really improved quickly once I got some of those things through my head. So, in kind of summary, the whole money pit concept is very psychological. You need to teach yourself. You need to get it through your own head. What is important, what is not important. The values that certain things have. If you do it this way, you'll be better off in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Whereas if you do it that way, it's going to be awesome today, but you're going to be paying for this for a long period of time.
Not that I don't love all of our clients, but some of my favorite clients that I really enjoy working with, that I kind of get a sense of satisfaction out of working with, are some of our younger clients. Yeah. Definitely younger than me. But the ones that recognize that, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to get help. I'm going to get help at a young age.
At a young age.
I'm not going to pretend like I know everything. I'm going to get help, and I'm going to set up my portfolio. I'm going to go through my budget. I'm going to, talk through some of these decisions with someone who, has maybe been there. And watching those clients progress through life.
Absolutely.
And getting to different stages in their life and watching them hit some of their goals. It's fun. It's rewarding. Watching someone, we open their Roth IRA. And then now you're watching their Roth IRA hit milestones. I'll just say that, right? Hitting certain milestones, or they're watching them, now they're getting engaged. Now they're getting married. Now we're adding insurance. Now we're, adding the wife's Roth IRA. We're bringing the wife's assets. We're getting a new job. We're getting a raise. We're buying a house, right? Progressing through the life stages with them is truly fun.
I had a meeting with a client just yesterday that when I first started working with this couple, they had no children and they were in their mid-20s, right? They are now in their mid to late 30s, and we had the conversation yesterday because they had the wisdom to do things the right way long before I did. We actually had the conversation yesterday. We need to start putting some money aside in accounts that we can access before 59 and a half because we're thinking that retiring at 54 or 55 is realistic. No, you're not allowed to retire before me. And I actually said that to him. But that, to your point, it is so much fun to work with those people who get it early. Yeah. And oh my gosh, because I know what's coming. Yeah. I'm well aware of the fact that they're actually going to be retired very early, or they're going to retire more traditional ages, but they're going to retire a whole lot better than so many other people. And they're not going to be worried about, can we afford to do this vacation? Can we afford to buy this for our grandchildren? Whatever. Of course,
I had a meeting with one of my younger clients last week, and we go through like kind of historical net worth because once they've been clients for a certain amount of time, we can track like this is where you were 4 years ago, this is where you were 5-6 years ago, this is where you are today, and it's a really good reminder of how far they've come, and that's a lot easier to see when you're kind of younger and you're accumulating, right? But no, that's a lot of fun to see, because you see younger folks doing things the right way, the way that they should be doing it, and you can see very, very clearly the types of decisions that they're going to have in front of them when they get to their 50s and 60s around, hey, maybe I can retire. Maybe I can quit the job that I don't like and maybe do something else with the time that I have. Maybe retiring at 55 is a legitimate opportunity for me, right?
Right.
And so going through some of those things is really, really, those are fun conversations, and that's when we get to the point of talking about doing life that we love to talk about, right?
Exactly.
That's the whole reason we have our firm structured the way that we do, is so we can help you do those things. Yeah. But we have to get you to that point first, right? So
we got to help you navigate avoiding the money pits, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Navigating money pits. So I don't really have a review for this. Is fantastic.
Okay, I'm going to make a point. If you noticed, if you're watching while you were talking about that, it dawned on me, I promised I would put some water in this and try it. And I was getting down pretty low, and I'm not going to pour another one. That would be unwise. But I had just a little bit left, and I put one drop of water in it. I swished it around, and I took a good drink out of it. It got spicier. You know, it's that concept of water, in many cases, repels certain protein strands or compounds or whatever it is. That's I'm not a chemist. Inside of the bourbon, and actually causes it to, because it's repelling those, it causes it to hit the tongue and the palate a little bit differently. Did that actually taste a little bit spicier to you? Now, you put several drops. I put one. It actually got hotter, and I didn't mind it. But this is one of those that it's like, I like the way
it didn't get less hot. I don't think it got hotter.
I like the way Freddie Johnson talks about it. If you know who Freddie is, he's probably the most famous guy in the bourbon world, other than a guy named Van Winkle. But Freddie said, you drink bourbon the way that you like it. If you like it on ice, fine. If you like it with water in it, fine. If you like it in a cocktail, fine. You're breaking my heart, but please don't mix this with anything. Oh, my gosh. At any price, are you going to find something that is better? Substantially better than that.
I had a conversation with the master distiller over at Heaven Hill one time. The Evan Williams Bourbon Experience downtown, and he was telling me one of his favorite things to do is bourbon and Sprite, because he just sometimes that's just what he likes when he's at home and he's kind of away from work, because he's tasting bourbon all the time, right?
Yes, so, I get that.
So you kind of want to get away from what you do during the day. Sometimes when he's relaxing at home, he's just pouring bourbon and Sprite, bourbon and ginger.
Well,
now he's not doing it with the nice stuff. He's not doing it with the Weller, right?
That was my point. But, so I participated in a tradition that our CPA has yesterday. We're recording this on the 17th of April. Yesterday was the day after tax day, and every year he goes out and plays golf, and I went with him, right? And I've gone with him several years in a row, and we have a great time. We always play the same course.
I need to get invited to one of those.
It's a lot of fun, and the argument from the CPAs, and there were actually three accountants in the group yesterday, is we're not doing taxes anymore. We're not sitting on a chair staring at a screen and people's paperwork for 12 and 13 and 14-hour days, 7 days a week. So to them, it's a big relief, and I love participating in that with them. But I made the comment, one of my favorite things to do when playing golf, and it was very hot outside yesterday, unseasonably warm. It was mid-80s. Yeah. It was windy. It was a little overcast. You didn't notice it, and all of a sudden, the clouds cleared and the sun came out, and I didn't put the sunscreen on quickly enough, and I got home last night and realized that I had my first sunburn of the year. But I told everybody, I said, this is something that I like to do. Take out some just 100 proof bourbon, right? I have one in mind. The Evan Williams Bottled and Bond is perfect for this, and it's very inexpensive. Put some of that in a Yeti type cup full of ice, and then pour a can of ginger beer on top of it, right? So to your point, the guy that's down at Heaven Hill, that's a Kentucky Mule. Yeah, you're supposed to dress it up, put some lime and stuff like that in, but it's basically a Kentucky Mule. It's incredibly refreshing. It tastes good when it's super hot outside. One of those, my big Yeti cup with, 4 ounces of bourbon in it, a whole can of ginger beer. That gets me through 18 holes, and it's great. It's refreshing. This is not the bourbon to do that with.
No.
At any price. If you told me this stuff was $20 a bottle, there is no way. And by the way, unlimited supply. I would not put anything in it. This is that good. I don't care how much you like waters or ice or mixers or whatever. This is one of the best bourbons at any price you are likely to ever drink. Please don't mix it with anything.
Don't need to.
Oh, yeah. If you see Weller Blue Label on a shelf at a reasonable price, now over $100, I don't think is reasonable.
Good luck finding it on any shelf.
But it's coming. We've talked about that. Yeah. When you see it out there, and you see it at a reasonable price, grab a bottle and just nurse this thing because it's so, so good.
All the notes, the honey, the caramel,
everything. There's citrus, there's cherry, there's
spice.
Honey, there's a little bit of spice to it. Yeah. It's not hot. It doesn't drink like 114 proof.
Oh, no, it goes down way too smooth.
This is one of those, to me, this is if I had that quintessential story of an old friend or maybe a parent or something like that, but the stereotypical, the guys get together and they open a bottle of bourbon and they sit there and drink it and they enjoy each other's company. And then a couple of weeks later, somebody passes away. This is the bottle that I'm hoping that you drank during that story. That's how good
that last taste stuff is. That last drop that I just had tastes like a Werther's original. That's just so good. So. All right, good place to wrap up.
Yep, absolutely.
We're past the hour mark. So
Weller is a money pit, but it is one well spent.
Buy it at retail.
That's where we were going.
If you buy it at retail,
and retail, oh my gosh, this stuff is so awesome. So,
regardless, anyway, that's the episode. If you like any of our content, you feel free to share it with anyone that you think might benefit from any of the things that we have to say as we ramble on around, money pits and kicking the can down the road and lifestyle creep and all the other stuff that we talk about. If you would like to come in and schedule an appointment with us, please feel free. Give us a call. You can find the number and the contact information on our website at fwppartners.com in the show notes below. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for joining us. Until next time.